Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. This is your legal light and health law. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini. Now, as you know, Ghana now has a new parliament. That's the 8th parliament of the Republic of Ghana, with a new speaker, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbing. His election was, as it were, mixed with a lot of issues. People are worried that it did appear that the parliamentarians who make the laws were breaking the laws. Ordinary citizens go to vote and get punished. They are taken to court and they suffer various punishments for breaking the laws on voting. This afternoon, we asked the question, did the MPs break the laws on voting? And if they did, what are the legal consequences? Are there any criminal sanctions or disciplinary sanctions that they may face? So we're treating the lawmakers break law on voting. That's the question. And you will join us with more questions. We have some of your questions already that our guest will help us to discuss. Our guest this afternoon is Julius Opoku-Adjei. He's head Opoku-Adjei & Co. We'll be right back.
The NDC MPs were the first to enter Parliament. They proceeded to sit at the right side, which is reserved for the majority side of the House. This set the stage for what many knew would be quite an eventful night. Promised to be a heated contest as the NDC and NPP had each served notice they would nominate a candidate. As soon as the Clerk of Parliament took his seat, the two nominations were made, but this was not without drama and controversy.
Because that was a preliminary inquiry, which was reiterated by the Honourable Member for Swami. And therefore,
the Futu MP Afenyo Markin asked the clerk to confirm whether he had received an injunction order barring NDC MP James Kwesi from holding himself out as MP-elect.
I am aware of the process that has been mounted.
This resulted in hours of heated debate and resistance from the NDC MPs, despite the clerk ruling that the NDC member could not take part in proceedings.
I received an order of interlocutory injunction.
He did participate in the election, but the process turned chaotic on at least 3 occasions. First, an NPP MP who was voting was accused by the NDC of showing his ballot to another person.
The Chamber of Parliament is the People's Chamber.
This threw the chamber into chaos amid the exchange of punches, kicking of ballot boxes to the ground, and the tearing of polling booths. All these were carried out by MPs. The military entered the chamber in what will for years remain unprecedented in an attempt to resolve the matter. It only worsened the situation as some MPs tried to lay hands on the ballot box amidst singing of revolutionary songs. was eventually restored as the military retreated and exited. Chaos, however, reared its ugly head yet again, this time during the counting of ballots. NPP MP Carlos Ahinkra was captured on camera talking to Swami MP Oseiche Mensah Bonsu few seconds after he headed towards the center of the chamber where counting was being observed by whips Frank Anodompre, Muntaka Mubarak and the Futu MP Afenyo Markin. Mr. Ahinkra in a split second seized the ballot sheets from the hands of an official and made a dash for the exit. This left MPP MP Afenyo Markin in what appears to be a surprised mood as Muntaka and other NDC MPs pursued Mr. Ahinkra. He was grabbed when he almost succeeded in exiting and became the recipient of punches and slaps from various quarters.
All right, so as you have seen, these are the pictures coming from Ghana's 8th Parliament. And it's all over the world. And everybody is very disturbed and concerned about what this has meant for the image of this republic. Let me welcome my guests to the studio. And as I indicated earlier, my guest this afternoon is Julius Opoku Ejei, head of Opoku Ejei & Co. Thank you very much for making the time to join us.
Thank you.
Great. So we have had many of our viewers and listeners reach out to us and ask us the question. The things that happened in Parliament, if they were done by any ordinary voter on an election day, they will be in trouble. We know of someone who snatched a ballot box. He was taken to court and he has been punished with a fine, and in default of paying the fine, he's supposed to go to prison, and in addition to that, he is not to vote in any public elections for 5 years. Election Commission officers were also found to have done some wrongs. Some of them were also taken to court. Some have also been slapped with various offenses. It was a topical issue before and particularly on election day that people who voted and tried to disclose their votes were liable to sanction, and people were arrested for taking a picture of their votes. Is Parliament different, and are the MPs any different and treated differently by the laws of Ghana when the Constitution says we are all equal before that law? Is it really true? And that's the question our audiences want to know.
Well, Samson, we are all equal before the law. That is true. That cannot be debated or argued. Is Parliament different? In a way, yes. But Parliament is not, or parliamentarians are not above the law. Everything that we do is governed by the laws of the land. You spoke about people who broke the law during the last election, and then the punishment that has been meted out to some of them already.
Right.
What comes to mind immediately is the question, should Parliament, in electing the Speaker, be treated, or do they come under the same laws under which we had the general elections, the presidential and parliamentary elections? Because whether what happened in Parliament is seen as a wrongdoing or not depends on what the law says. If somebody snatches a bag, it may not necessarily be an offense. If it is my own bag and I snatch it, I've committed no offense. But if I snatch your bag without your permission, then the law says I have committed an offense.
That is stealing.
Stealing. If I snatch a ballot box in a boardroom where we are having discussions about a company, I'm a member of the board, and I take away the ballot papers or the ballot box, Have I broken any of the laws of the land? To my mind, no. Why? Because even though we are having an election in the boardroom or voting on a matter, it is not a public election. That is the key here. That is the key we must look at.
Okay.
In choosing the speaker, are the parliamentarians engaged in a public election?
Okay.
If they are, then all the laws which govern the conduct of public elections and then the conduct of people who go to vote or are voted for will come in play. If not, then is it a lawless situation? Or what set of laws governs the act of selecting or electing a speaker and the deputy speakers? That, I think, is a question we should look at.
So the representation of the people law, which is the, if you like, apart from the Constitution, which is what we may call the mother law regarding elections, how elections are conducted in this country. For example, says that a person present at the counting of votes shall maintain and help in maintaining the secrecy of voting and shall not communicate an information obtained at the counting of the votes as to the candidate for whom a vote is given or particular ballot paper. Then the more specific one I want to refer to and ask you the question is, a person shall not interfere with or attempt to interfere with a voter when the voter is recording the vote, or obtain or attempt to obtain in a polling station information about the candidate for whom a voter is voting for, however you want to look at it. You are saying that if the MPs who were found snatching ballot boxes, snatching ballot papers, and even chewing, and as we understand, swallowing one, that act can constitute interference of the process that may not be an offense. Is that what you're saying?
If the elections were not held under the representation of the people's law, if it is not a public election, then it is not an offense under the representation of the people's law.
Okay.
To my mind, the election of the speaker and the deputy speakers is governed by the standing orders of Parliament. Now, does that make it a public election? I don't think so. But then there are rules in the standing orders governing how they must vote. And specifically on the question of the secrecy of the ballot, let me be a bit controversial here. As far as my understanding of the law is concerned, the secrecy is to protect the voter. So the voter, if he chooses, can show his ballot. So I am in complete disagreement with the police for arresting people who have chosen to show how they voted, unless it can be shown that that act was done because of bribery. I've taken money, so I want to demonstrate that I actually voted for what I took the money for, or I've been intimidated to vote in that manner. The law lists those things. In the absence of any of those things, in a general election, I believe that I have a right to show. Assuming I'm even a candidate, I thumbprint and I show that I voted for myself.
Do I have a right to tell people who I voted for in the same way as I have a right to tell people who I am going to vote for, which is not an offense?
Yes.
Or you are saying that even beyond that, I can actually take a photograph of the ballot and show it, and that is not an offense?
In my opinion, yes. But that is different from the situation in Parliament. I'll come to that.
All right.
So that if I choose to show who I voted for, and it is not because I have taken money, it is not because I've been intimidated, it is not because I've gone to swear an oath to some God somewhere, then I've committed no offense. The secrecy is to protect me. I cannot be compelled to show who I voted for. But if I willingly disclose it, that's my own cup of tea.
Right.
But the situation in Parliament is
the law
different.
actually says you cannot be compelled to show who you voted for.
Yes, you cannot be compelled.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you cannot then voluntarily disclose if it is not because you've been influenced by any of those considerations we mentioned. But Parliament is different because the standing order states specifically that you should fold your paper in a manner that nobody will see who you voted for when you are voting for speaker.
Okay.
So in that case, I don't have the right to show who I voted for. So in Parliament, secret voting means don't let anybody, even you, the person who voted, cannot disclose who you voted for, because it says fold the paper. It specifically says fold, not just that don't show it, but fold the paper in a manner that nobody will see who you voted for. That is the difference, as I see it.
I see. Now, when the various provisions of the law provide for and punish all of us generally for the things we do at elections, including the Criminal and Other Offences Act, Section 255, for example, speaks about prevention of election by force. And it says a person who attempts to prevent, obstruct, or disturb a public election by a kind of force, violence, or threat, or by an act which is a criminal offense punishable under this act, commits a misdemeanor. Then you have other aspects of questions of corruption, intimidation, among others, which is punished by the law. Is it again to say, as you said, that because what goes on in this election of the speaker, as you say, is not public election, we cannot use this law to punish those people?
I believe they can be punished under the standing orders of Parliament, not necessarily the general law. If you look at their number 28, their standing orders number 28.
Okay.
If I may read, it's under contempt of Parliament or breach of privilege.
Okay.
An act or omission which obstructs or impedes Parliament in the performance of its function, or which obstructs or impedes a member or officer of Parliament in the discharge of his duties, or affronts the dignity of Parliament, or which tends either directly or indirectly to produce such a result, shall be contempt of Parliament. I believe this is the proper provision under which they should be punished. If, or let me put it this way, under which they should be tried, and if found guilty, the appropriate punishment meted out to them. The fact that they cannot be properly, as I see, tried under one enactment doesn't mean that there is no enactment which can be brought in to deal with the conduct if we think it is wrong conduct. And let me say here without any equivocation that I disapprove of what happened in Parliament.
Okay.
I strongly disapprove of what happened in Parliament. It's completely wrong.
So our audience would like to really understand.
I'm not cutting you short. Let me just continue. If you go to 29, it also says
of the standing orders. Okay.
If an offense or something, an act constitutes a breach of the privilege, and Parliament punishes you, it doesn't stop us from using the general law to punish you as well.
Right.
So here there is no double jeopardy. The standing orders expressly makes room for double jeopardy. You can be punished by Parliament, and then the general law can also punish you. And
the acts which will constitute a breach of the privilege or contempt of Parliament, it gives you a list.
Yes.
And among them is disorderly conduct on the part of strangers, such as riotous or disorderly action by strangers to hinder or promote the passing of a bill or other legislative measure or motion or any other matter pending before the House. Misbehavior on the part of witnesses appearing before Parliament or any of its committees. Flagrant, persistent, or willful disobedience of the general rules or orders of the House, including its committees, designed to prevent, delay, obstruct, or interfere with the execution of the orders of the House or its committees. All right, so
if you go to K, if you look at K, I think it's most appropriate.
Yes, K says attempts by improper or corrupt means to influence members or officers in their parliamentary duties. Yes, that's K. Yes. So these are acts of breach of the privilege or contempt of Parliament.
Yes. Yes.
And you say it is under these rules that they may suffer disciplinary action, but not necessarily be punished for breaching our election laws?
My position is not that they cannot be punished for breaching our election laws. My position is that what they did, as bad as it is, in my opinion, does not amount to a breach of our election laws, because the election was not held under our election laws, to my understanding.
Okay.
I've also heard the argument being made by some people that at the time of that election of the speaker, they had not yet been sworn in, so they were not properly speaking members of parliament. But we know that strangers can also be held in contempt of parliament. So even if it is true that they were not members of parliament at the time,
okay,
but they were in the chamber of parliament, undertaking parliamentary duties, because part of the duty to elect is, in fact, I think it's their first duty.
That's right.
Even before they are sworn in.
That's right.
To elect the speaker. And they say they are strangers, and so they misbehaved, and so cannot be punished as members. They can be punished as strangers.
Okay. Very interesting. And your reference to public elections and what happened, the election of the speaker being difficult to be construed as a public election, is on the basis that what we have referred to as, apart from the Constitution, which we can call the mother election law, which is the PNDC law 284, restricts the definition of a public election to an election under that law.
Yes.
And then when we come to the Criminal Offences Act, also provides that the expression public election, the expression public election shall be construed by the reference to Article 49. Article 49 is the provision that says voting shall be by secret ballot. Okay. Of the Constitution, and includes an election, the qualification for voting at which, or the mode of voting at which, is determined or regulated by any enactment. So why is that of the speaker difficult to construe as a public election?
They voted under their standing orders.
Okay.
It is true that the Constitution says they must vote.
Yes.
Now,
the Constitution actually says they should vote and vote by secret ballot.
Yes. Does that then make it a public election? I don't see it as that. If we look at the Constitution again, and then we look at the Electoral Commission law, it tells you that every public election shall be conducted by the Electoral Commission. Was this election conducted and supervised by the Electoral Commission? No. If it is a public election, then we are doing something wrong here. Then the Electoral Commission should be in charge of the election of the speaker.
It was the clerk who was in charge of this.
It was the clerk who presided over the election. Electoral Commission had nothing to do with it at all.
Okay.
So I don't construe what happened there as a public election.
Interesting. Our audience, I can tell you, will be disappointed in getting suggestions that they may not suffer criminal sanction for breaching our public election laws. But don't forget that he also emphasizes that some things may not come under the public election law, but they may constitute crimes generally and may be punished. And again, that the rules or the standing orders of Parliament also provide in a way that could be used to catch the MPs who misconducted themselves by snatching ballot boxes, snatching ballots, and chewing some of them.
Riotous conduct.
Riotous conduct. The standing order says...
No, I mean, under the general laws,
okay,
charge them with...
That's right.
Disorderly or riotous conduct.
Okay. Okay.
Which is not necessarily an election-related offense.
The minister, former minister, and MP who took the ballot and ran away with it could also be said to have been stealing it. So he could,
to the extent
he can be punished for stealing
property and then he has taken it. I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
If we stretch the definition of stealing, I think we can hold him under that.
I see. I see. And those who were kicking the boxes, damaging the booth,
I can't immediately remember the section, but they are damaging public property.
All right. All right.
They are causing damage to public property.
And that's offense generally?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. I will return to you. We have our viewers, audiences joining us already, but there are some who are asking the question, were the MPs who initially, I think 2 or 3 occasions, tried to interfere with the process, not trying to protect a violation of the Constitution? The Constitution says they must elect the Speaker by secret ballot. If somebody or some people were trying to conduct themselves in a way that breaches the secrecy, and they were insisting on that and needed to use some amount of force, does that not mean that you cannot take any action against them? And then there's a question that people are also asking about the MP, beleaguered MP of, is it Asin North, who got into the house and it was said that there was an injunction against him. What are the implications about his conduct also? Let's get onto Zoom and take your questions. Okay, Sani, you are calling us from Tamale. Let's hear your question for Julius Opoku-Adjei.
Thank you, Samson. The point I want to make is these people are referred to as honorable members or honorable men and women. You see the person misconduct himself this way. Already we have this issue pending in the Supreme Court, being referenced as if some people might have stolen their verdict. But we are waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on that yet. And yet these honorable people will go and misconduct themselves this way, and yet we will not see the law take its course. I believe that better late than none. It is better for them to use them as the ones to stand before the court or whatever sanctions that will be meted out to them, especially the one who tried to run away with the ballot papers, one, and then the military officers who invaded the place should also be sanctioned.
All right. Sani, thank you. Thank you. That's a contribution, not a question. Thank you very much for your contribution. Sani spoke to us on phone from Tamale. Who do we have next? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Please, I'm Asante, calling from Achimoda.
Let's hear your question. Asante, let's hear you. Okay, I think we have lost Asante, who was calling us from Chimoda. Asante, you can call again. So we can go to Zoom now and take a question or two. Who joins us first? I can see 3 of you on the Zoom who are ready. Any one of you can go ahead and then start with your question. Yes.
Yes, this is Dominic.
Go ahead. Let's know. What's your name?
Yeah, I'm Dominic, joining in from South Africa.
Okay, Dominic, let's hear you.
Yes. Thank you, Samson, for the program. Just wanted to find out from the host and then the guest. Are we saying we cannot find any other law within the Constitution or standing orders that would punish our honorable members, as we refer to them, so that they serve as example for those of us who want to take up politics in future? Because this is uncalled for a whole member of parliament, whether to be sworn in or not, to just snatch a ballot paper and run with it. It's uncalled for.
All right. Thank you.
Can we not find a law?
Thank you, Dominic.
Within the Constitution standing orders.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Dominic. Asante is back. But Dominic, if you joined us from the start, Julius Opoku-Adjei has been very clear about the issue that there is room for some sanction, even including some criminal punishment, but not, perhaps not punishment in respect of breaches of the election laws because of the requirement of a public election. Asante, you are back. Let's hear you. Hello, Asante, you are calling from Akimoda. Let's hear you. Hello, Jacob.
Hello.
Yes, Jacob, go ahead.
I want to know if somebody is seen defending the Constitution of Ghana in any way, is that practice or whatever means is using to defend the Constitution of Ghana, can it be classified to be criminal or offensive to the law? I want to know.
Thank you.
Because the parliamentarians who were holding the ballot boxes were defending the Constitution. They were trying to make sure that a secret voting is maintained.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a very clear question. Okay, so let's see. How do you respond to that?
Well, we all of us have a duty to defend the Constitution. But how do you do that? There are institutions of state which play various roles. If you go into Parliament, we have the Marshal's Office, which is responsible for law and order in and around the precincts of Parliament. It was the duty of the Marshal and his lieutenants or whoever he works with to make sure that everything that happened in the chamber was done or is done in an orderly manner. The Marshal's Office failed us. Let's put it bluntly. The Marshal's Office failed us. I mean, we saw armed police and soldiers come in. It wasn't good. I don't know who asked them to come in, whether it was the Marshal or it was somebody else who asked them to come in, any of the MPs or former ministers, etc. It wasn't a good sight at all. The Marshal's Office should be strengthened. If we didn't expect this kind of thing, now we know, we've seen it, should be strengthened. And to my mind, those who were preventing the disclosure of the voting should have engaged the marshals to do that for them. Should have engaged the marshals that this are...
Can't we tell by watching the footages and the developments that their intervention could have been the last resort after they discovered that help was not coming?
That's why I said the Marshal's Office failed us.
So granted the Marshal Office failed, could they be said to have been defending the Constitution by using, as it were, force or some other form?
I will not go as far as to say they were defending the Constitution. I wouldn't say that. But if the Marshal's Office failed in its duty and those MPs elect at that time stopped others from wrongdoing, then they were doing the right thing. Okay. How they went about it and the extent to it is like when you are using force. It's always expected to be reasonable force. You want to stop wrongdoing, you want to stop those voting from showing their ballots. How do you go about it? The how could be an issue. But for stopping wrongdoing, they were right in stopping the wrongdoing.
The Constitution allows citizens to use violent means to stop a coup, an overthrow of the Constitution itself or a government. And when they do so, even by arms, maybe arms that are not even registered, they will not be punished for doing so.
That is correct.
Can we use that analogy here? Because I see many people trying to use that.
You see, that's why I said reasonableness. For instance, if in stopping people from disclosing their ballots, can I then shoot them and say I'm defending the Constitution? So if you are showing your ballot or your vote to somebody, you are breaching the Constitution, so I'll shoot you there. No, that is completely different from an attempt to overthrow the state, for which reason if I even use nuclear weapons on you, the state will come and protect me.
Okay.
So it's the reasonableness of your action, the reasonableness of your force, which would show whether or not, I mean, the state should come to your aid or you should be punished for what you did.
Okay. And the the provision I just referred to in the Constitution, let me read it to you because I've seen a couple of you referring to that as a basis, and he has given an explanation. The Constitution says that all citizens of Ghana shall have the right and duty at all times to defend the Constitution, and in particular to resist any person or group of persons seeking to commit any of the acts referred to in Clause 3. And acts referred to in Clause 3 include suspension or overthrow or abrogation of the Constitution or any part of it.
Treason.
Yes, treason. So it says that people have a right, or citizens have a right, to do all in their power, to restore this Constitution after it has been suspended, overthrown, or abrogated. Any person or group of persons who suppresses or resists the suspension, overthrow, or abrogation of this Constitution commits no offense. So, like... so
that sums up what I said. That
all right.
If it is something which involves, for instance, the violent overthrow of the Constitution, you're entitled to do that.
Okay.
But if the president, for instance, makes an appointment to an office he's not entitled to make, you don't get up with a gun to say, I'm defending the Constitution because that appointment is unconstitutional, then I'm going to fight him with a gun. You can't do that.
Okay. I have a question here by email to you, but let me go to Ibrahim. Ibrahim, you're on Zoom. Let's hear you. Ibrahim, unmute and let's hear you.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Joining the program live here from Berlin, Germany. Is it's a cold weather out here today. It's about 2 degrees. And
good luck to you. I can't survive 2 degrees. Let's hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Even here in Germany, you understand, I don't really know why people back home from Ghana have a problem with what happened exactly in Parliament on the 7th, because I stayed all night watching. And, it's accustomed to parliaments all over the world, because it's a place where people with different ideas come together to sit to judge and, at the end of the day, be able to sit under one table and then do the normal business which they have been elected to do. The German parliament here in Germany, Berlin, here, the Bundestag, it happens. People fled up, confusions raised, tensions go very high. But at the end of the day, what the parliamentarians in Ghana did was to elect the speaker, and finally they did. And even here in Germany, if somebody is trying to subvert the Constitution, you have the power as a citizen to either take a citizen's arrest or use reasonable force to protect the Constitution. So what the NDC parliamentarians did on that particular day was to use all necessary, minimum force to protect what the Constitution of Ghana said,
all right,
which is vote secretly.
Thank you. Let's take Abdul. Hello, Abdul. Hello, Abdul. Abdul, unmute and let's hear you. Hello, Abdul.
Okay, good afternoon to your viewers out there.
Go ahead.
My question to your guest is about the invadement of the military men to the chamber. Because when I look, I don't know if the military men or the security personnel, they are also have the right to be above the law. Because when I look, Parliament has the marshals that take care of all the things that, as far as security is concerned. So why was the military men invaded to the Parliament House, and who gave them that authority to come to Parliament Parliament? Because they are not allowed to be in Parliament. And we, from 1992, the Constitution Act is raised. We've never experienced something like that, and I've never seen a military man in Parliament. So why were they in Parliament, and under what authority, and who give them the authority to be in Parliament? That's just my question.
Thank you. So that's a contribution to what Lopoko J has already said. I have Amano. Hello, Amano. Amano, let's hear you quickly. Amano. All right, Amano, that's bad. Hello, Adams. Hello, Adams, can you hear me? Adams, unmute and talk.
Okay, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
I can hear you. Okay. Something what I have to this afternoon that per our constitution, they said we should defend the constitution of Ghana. When something is wrong, as Ghanaians, let's quickly point it out and say it's wrong. On the 6th of that night in Parliament, as the Constitution said, the standing order said, we should vote in secrecy. If it is not about secrecy, then they should have not even bring it up. Everybody could come and vote. Even in the animal kingdom, they have rules which govern them. So if they agree in voting on secrecy, why would one try to show the ballot to others? That is what caused the problem.
All right, thank you.
Please.
Okay, thank you. So that's a contribution also, not a question. Thank you very much. There's some form of a question and contribution from Dr. Edward, and he says that Parliament is a public institution with members merely representing members of the public and political parties, which are also public institutions. If Parliament therefore cannot be called a private institution, then the election of an important leader of the House must be a public exercise. The absence of EC, rather than justifying it as not public elections, should rather be seen as an anomaly, and therefore it should be the EC that conducts such an election like the EC does for political party leadership elections. What do you say about that? Well, but when the EC conducts elections for, or supervises elections for political parties, and they breach the public election laws, they cannot be punished under the public election laws because that is not a public election, so to speak.
Is that a question?
That's an addition that I want to bring to the attention of Dr. Friend.
I think we should get some clarity on this going forward. We should pass legislation clearly stating where that election stands and how it should be conducted. See, let's agree that we are still taking baby steps in democracy. From 92 to now, it's quite a while. We've done about 20 years.
We are maturing democracy, but, not fledgling democracy.
Yes, but you know, we are still evolving. Look, until I think this was the first time we are having Parliament dissolve around midnight and then the new election taking place around midnight. Previously, they adjourn during the day and they don't come back until the following morning. They don't do it around midnight. So we had that long, what I call lacuna. You know, so things are evolving.
No, they have always elected the speaker immediately.
At midnight?
Yes, immediately.
Well, then
because if you don't elect the speaker, you will not even have to. You will not be able to swear in the president too.
No, but
what they have often adjourned, sometimes adjourned, is the deputy speakers.
Okay, then I'll have to look at it again.
Right.
But the point I'm making, well, it's not that. The point I'm making is that we are still evolving.
Okay.
And our experience from Thursday shows us that we should be very clear in how we go about this. And for instance, I mean, look at what happened with the seating, for instance. It shouldn't have happened. Okay, so we take a break, and when we return, you tell us about that MP and what happened, the clerk's ruling. He seemed to have reversed his ruling and gave another thing and said, no, I will not be part with anything that happens to you. We'll be right back. This is The Law. It's your legal light and health law. You're welcome back. This is The Law. It's your legal light and health law. Our guest is Julius Opoku-Adjei, head of Opoku-Adjei & Co., assisting us with some education on whether or not the MPs or the lawmakers broke the law on voting and are liable to any sanctions. In a minute, can we do
a bit of a recap of a summary of what your position as you find in the law is concerned, talking about public elections, talking about the standing orders, talking about the laws regarding public elections, the Constitution, and also the criminal general laws. And then we'll come to the question of the MP.
Well, first of all, my opinion is that election of speaker is not a public election, so-called. So that whatever happens there, the people cannot be punished under our public election laws, the representation of the people's law and all those. Which
punishes you for interference with the process and all that?
Yes.
Snatching a ballot box and all that.
But the elections were conducted under the standing orders of parliament. Standing orders of parliament makes provision for punishing people, whether MPs or MPs-elect or strangers, who misbehave in parliament. So they can be punished under those standing orders. What they did, in my opinion, amounts to contempt of parliament. Okay. They can be taken under those. And then when we go outside...
Contempt of parliament or breach of the privileges. Okay.
It depends on where they want to stand. Because as I've heard some of them saying that they were not MPs at the time.
Okay. So, and then you came to the criminal laws.
The general criminal laws. They can be punished. I mean, they are destroyed public property, stealing, riotous conduct, all those. If we want to punish them, we can find the laws in our general criminal jurisprudence to go after them.
And it will be the job of the Attorney General to take a case against them in court.
That if it is under the general criminal law, then it should be the job of the Attorney General.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is Parliament which should punish its members under its standing orders.
Okay. But that will not be a criminal sanction.
Yes.
Okay.
And as I pointed out, Parliament punishing them does not preclude they are being punished under the general laws.
So Parliament can do it, and the Attorney General can still take them to court, and they'll be punished.
Yes.
Okay, right. That's very interesting. And the MP, Ahenkora, who took, like we said, could be stealing, who took the ballot papers, he was beating. People really went at him. That's an assault, right?
It is.
Can he make a complaint that he has been assaulted? And will the people be justified in their defense?
Of course, he can make a complaint of assault.
Do you expect him to complain to the police that he has been assaulted?
I think it would be in his own good interest to go and find some hot water and nurse his bruises rather than aggravate the situation.
Interesting. Now, we have very limited time, but let's go to the question of the MP for Asin North elect. There had been an injunction.
He's sworn in now, so he's not elect.
Okay, he's been sworn in, right? He had been injuncted. There was an injunction on him by the Cape Coast High Court because there's a suit against him for allegedly going through the process to be elected as filing his processes at a time when he held dual citizenship. The process injunction order was served on the clerk. The clerk came out and read it and said, I have received this from the court. Because of that, I won't recognize you. Ask the marshal to walk him out. Then that began the whole trouble. Then later he came back and said, well, he's reading Article 105, which says that if you are not permitted to come to the house and to participate in the process, and you do, you'll be committing a criminal offense. And so if he does anything, he's on his own. What possibly may happen in this circumstance?
Samson, first of all, two things here. I will tell the public that I'm from Asin, not Asin North, though, Asin Central, but close enough. So I need to make that distinction.
Okay.
I'm from Asin Fosu. And then secondly, this matter is somehow still before the courts.
Right.
So I need to watch what I see very carefully. The important thing here is the wording of the injunction. What was he injuncted from doing? And who was aware, who had been served with the injunction?
From what we know, the injunction order was to the effect that he should not present himself to Parliament to be sworn in.
Yes.
And he shouldn't hold himself as MP-elect.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the injunction on him. He had been injuncted.
Okay.
had he been served prior to the proceedings?
They said he had not been served.
That is what I have heard. That's why I say we need to be careful here.
They insist, but even up to today.
But there is evidence that the clerk had been served.
Yes, because the court ordered that the clerk should be served.
Yes, so if anybody has done wrong here, I'll look at the clerk. Not to the person who had no official knowledge of the injunction because he had not been served.
It doesn't matter that his lawyer was in court
and
when the ruling was given.
You see, something, judges these days, sorry to the audience, but judges these days are even asking that even if you were there and the penal notice is not served, you will not be in contempt if you go against what was done.
Interesting.
I've had a case where the judge asked, was there a penal notice served after the injunction order itself was served on the alleged contempt? No.
Okay. So we are looking at what possibly may happen. You say the attention will be on the clerk and not the guy.
That is how I see it.
The MP. Okay.
That is how I see it from the facts in the public domain. As to whether or not the clerk acted well, I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay.
But I think that's where the focus would.
So the clerk came back to say, instead of saying, I don't recognize you, he came to read Article 105 to him.
Yes.
And Article 105 says, a person who sits or votes in Parliament, knowing or having reasonable grounds for knowing that he is not entitled to do so, commits an offence and shall be liable on conviction to such penalty as shall be prescribed by or under an act of Parliament.
Samson, if I walk onto the floor of Parliament and they are debating, and not having been elected to Parliament, I start taking part in the debate. I don't expect the clerk or speaker to read Article 105 to me. I expect that he will get his marshals to throw me out and hand me over to the police. So you don't allow assuming it is an offense, you don't allow it and say, I have read the criminal proceedings or criminal act to the person, so if he won't listen and he will go ahead, then no.
So assuming that has already happened and the person has participated, like he read out to the MP, now he went ahead and conducted himself through the process. Do we know of any law that provides the punishment for this?
You see, the law says that you will be punished under an enactment. Has that enactment been passed? I don't know.
I've been trying to look for that.
I didn't find it. So if this is what is going to be invoked, then he may go scot-free because he can only be punished under an act passed subsequent to the promulgation of the Constitution.
But it's also possible that contempt proceedings may come against him in the court.
Oh,
whether it will succeed or not is what you are saying.
That is for the plaintiff to determine.
Let's see if we can get one or two more questions. Hello, Albert. Albert, let's be quick about it. We have just some 3 minutes. Yes, hello, Albert. Albert, on mute. Hello, Abuaje, unmute and let's hear you.
Yeah, I think I've unmuted, Albert.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, I think I overheard your guys talk or said that the MP's election wasn't public election or something like that. So that means that there is no clarity in the law. That shows that they've broken the law or they haven't. So if that has not been done, can there be a new law that will ensure that such acts in subsequent elections are being punished?
All right. Thank you very much, Albert. He just advocated for same. Hello, Abuaje. Let's hear you quickly.
Hello. Okay. My question is, we are to condemn whatever happened, but as a saying in Akan, which translates that if nothing happens to the palm front, it will not make noise. Who actually started the whole nasty scenario? That person must be sanctioned, if possible. You see, because we cannot teach anything out of what's happening to our children. So who actually started the whole show?
All right.
That's my question.
All right. Thank you, Abuaje. And then Gilbert, you be my last contributor. Hello, Gilbert. Gilbert, unmute and go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Very fine afternoon in Ghana. I'll ask a simple question, as my brother initially said, that if somebody might be punished, then it should be rather the clerk. I suggest, but it's my question like this. Should the clerk also be punished for allowing the proceedings of the parliament, which stated that the people should vote, which will be folded or in secrecy, and should allow it to do the voting within open ballot? Why is he already know the standing orders of parliament? Because whatever happened there, it was declared from when the people were alleged voting in open ballot, while the standing order of parliament indicated that they should vote in secrecy.
Okay.
That brings about all the controversies. So see the clerk.
Thank you, Gilbert. So Gilbert and Abuaje all are looking at the same place. You hinted, I think you were categorical about that the focus should be the clerk.
Yes. That's what I think. Because he was in charge of the place. Until the election of the speaker, he was in charge. But another thing that has just come to mind, secret ballots. The rules want secret ballot. Write the name, fold it. Meanwhile, we have a whip system in place, which is supposed to whip the members into line. We have to look at that too again. Where secret ballot is concerned. If it's a voice vote, it's a voice vote. But if secret ballot, then how does the whip system work with this?
So someone had asked the question on social media about whether, if eventually, for example, if the MP got convicted for contempt, if he got convicted for contempt, or if there was a law under Article 105, and he's prosecuted in that and punished as well, either way, or if he suffered both sanctions, is there any consequence for the election, the validity of the election of the speaker?
Well, I don't think so.
Right.
It's like what we have in the presidential parliamentary elections generally. If somebody who is not entitled to vote goes to vote and you can't fish out that particular ballot, you can't do much about it. If there are infractions, you can get the law to work on, yes. But otherwise, I don't think his having voted invalidates the election. I don't see that in their laws.
Okay, so if there's any sanction, he suffers the sanction.
He suffers the sanction.
And that's where it ends. All right, thank you very much, Julius Opoku-Eje. He's head of Opoku-Eje & Co. law firm and has been assisting us on the law. This is your Legal Light and Health Law. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Thank you all so very much. I can see you are eager to continue the discussion. Let's continue it in our various homes and wherever we find ourselves. We'll see you again next week with another edition of The Law.